So, you want to just test this presentation, what I'm going to do?
Yes, sir. We can go ahead.
Can you see this?
Yes, sir. We can see.
Yeah. And if I put this way, yep.
Yes, yes. It's in presentation mode, right?
Okay. Okay. Great. Great. So, I hope you are able to see me because I can't see myself here.
Yeah, we're able to see you, sir.
You are able to see me, right?
Yes.
So, okay. Great.
Rest of the people, we request them to keep the video off and on mute.
And on the screen at present, what are you seeing? You are seeing the presentation or some
We are seeing the multiple screen to screen.
multiple
Picture
screens?
picture.
Yeah. So let me just put. Is this better?
This is better, sir.
Okay. 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 Only things that I can't see you when I'm putting on this screen, and I can see Abhimanyu also joining.
Namaste, sir.
Yeah. Namaste. Namaste. Good afternoon.
Oh, sir.
I'm fine. How are you?
Fine, sir. Fine, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for accepting to attend this session, sir.
No, my pleasure. My pleasure, Abhimanyu. And when Suhas tells me, I can't say no to him. That's for sure. So, and where are you based? I believe in at
Vasai,
Vasai,
sir.
right?
We are operating from Vasai.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Rajesh can explain about your products and other things.
Yeah. So basically, as a JanyuTech, we are a startup company. You can say, though our team is a mix of experience and new people. But this company, JanyuTech, is registered in 2016. We have roots from IIT Mumbai. There is one center of excellence from where this company started. Basically, Abhimanyu is associated with IIT for mentoring of the students. So that is where he met Mr. Hemant, who is another co-founder of this company. And we started off with making one product for defense, that is for CRPF. It's a mine detection robotic system. That was the problem statement given by Home Ministry to IIT for development. And that was successfully developed, tried, tested. Multiple demos were given. After spending almost 2 years on that product, it is currently still on the process of tendering and all. With defense, it is a long way. So we learned that lesson for initial 2-3 years since we were focusing only on that product. So nothing could be done much on the business side, though R&D was going on well. So we thought of putting our expertise into industrial area, using our expertise in the having the crawlers kind of system, remotely operated vehicles.
Okay.
So we developed some products for confined space application. We welcome Suhasji. Sir, welcome.
Hello, Suhashi.
Hello, hello.
Hi.
Right. So Suhasji just I was just giving some brief of JanyuTech to Shailendra sir.
Yeah, even I was interested, so I joined a little early.
And before you joined Suhashi, I was telling them that when Suhashi asked me to do something, I can't say no to him.
So we will ask much more mark through you, sir. Then.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have played a lot of chess during our childhood together.
I know, I remember, and you used to beat me. That also I remember.
No, I don't remember that.
So sir, as I was saying,
Yeah, go ahead.
Since starting, we are based in Vasai only, with the proximity to Mumbai and IIT, and a lot of industries are here. In Vasai, we have all support system of vendors for our products, as well as all the corporate houses. There are main offices, head offices in Mumbai. So though we have to go for doing business all over India, but the things and discussions, meetings, top level happens in Mumbai. So that way we prefer to settle in Vasai. And we then worked on a crawlers kind of system for a confined space application for removal of sludge from the confined spaces. We thought of putting robotic technology for the use of hazardous applications, risk mitigation in doing that kind of work. Instead of just typically doing the kind of robotic automation work that many of the industries are doing, they are more of an integrators rather than a robotic automation company.
Okay.
Since we have a very deep technology knowledge and a big team, having in-house design, development, everything of the products. So whatever the products we are dealing in, most of them are in-house design developed.
Okay.
So we have been catering the industry in oil and gas, chemical, manufacturing, minerals, metals with this industrial sludge cleaning application. At the same time, again, robotic automation for material handling and critical areas. Again, instead of going to automobile sector, wherein 90% plus robotic automation is in place as of now,
Okay.
we address or we approach a manufacturing industry where again there is some kind of risk mitigation we are doing with the people working in metal industry, where they are handling a molten metal in the tune of around 400 to 600 degrees temperature.
Oh,
And still the operations are being done manually.
yeah.
So we thought of putting our expertise there, and we have been associated with Aditya Birla Group in a big way for this kind
Really?
of work. Yeah, we are. You can say we are a technology partner for them. We have signed a MOU with them,
Oh.
and all the ABG group companies like Hindalco Industries, Ultratech, then Grasim Industries.
Okay.
We are doing work with all of them.
Oh, wow. Since you have mentioning about Hindalco, Aditya Birla, hello. Yeah. Maybe, of course, we will, offline also discuss something. Something interesting, comes to my mind. But of course, that is.
Sir, our director Harish has joined.
Harish, sir, welcome. So Harish Patak is our director with JanyuTech. And he was associated with Tata Group for more than 3.5 decades.
Okay.
He was managing director of Tata BlueScope and the group president of Tata Autocom.
Okay.
He's, currently as
Nice,
associated
nice meeting you, Harish.
I think he's in mute.
Someone, Vivek needs to put
Mute.
the speaker. Vivek, you need to. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
So this is the kind of area we're working. We are also
It's
working.
very interesting, and certainly we will, discuss this offline because,
Offline,
I have also some good connectivity with Birla and few other, of course, companies. So maybe it's very good to know. And since you mentioned about Hindalco, probably you might have, might be knowing Mr. Ladda. So JC Ladda.
He's in. He's a
He
citizen.
was Hindalco, the copper division head a couple of years back. So he was very much part of Aditya Birla Group. Very recently had just joined in our consultancy arm. So we will talk, of course, later.
Yes. Mr. Sadhuru Kulkarni was the technical head.
Actually, Subhaji introduced.
Okay.
Rajit, you can go ahead. 4:30 again.
Yes, sir. We can just go ahead with the session. Sir, we'll start with the session, and I'll just give it 2 minutes to introduce you formally, and then I'll hand it over to you, sir.
Sure.
So good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 53rd session of Saturday Talk. We are privileged to have Shailendra Gokhale today for our today's session. Shailendra is the managing partner of Rosefield DA International. He is the director, founder of Rosefield Energy Tech Private Limited. Graduate in mechanical engineering with a specialization in DMM and DITM. He is also a member of Energy Institute London. He is having expertise, having internationally renowned technical expert on crude oil, lubricants, base oils, and additives. He is having immense experience in international trade management, value engineering, M&A, business strategy, and supply chain management. Shailendra is highly experienced in energy professional with a broad global experience and with major strength in value engineering and international trade management. He is a globally renowned and recognized expert in global value chain downstream, and currently he advises some of the best energy companies globally He's a much sought after speaker, having participated in various ICIS and other international conferences of petroleum, base oils, and lubricants. Shailendra ji has an excess of 27 years of experience in the energy sector. After working with Lubrizol India for 5 years, he moved to BP Castrol India. Later, he moved to UK as a member of global leadership team at BP headquarters. After working for 17 years at senior leadership position, Shailendra left BP in 2014 to start his own consultancy firm, that is Rosefield Energy Tech, to work in the energy sector. Shailendra has, to his credit, consultancy assignments with energy majors like Petronas, ANOC, Infinium, BP Castrol, Brentag, HPCL, Morris, Gulf, Lanxess, GP Global, Hardcastle Petrofer, and few MNCs. He is an external advisor to Boston Consulting Group. He was an advisory committee of Indian Institute of Petroleum and Energy, Visakhapatnam, during 2019 and 20. Today, he is going to deliver his address on the current energy crisis and its impact on international trade. Sir, over to you from here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rajeshji. So first of all, good evening to all. And before I just start my presentation, I just wanted to say big thanks to Abhimanyuji and my dear friend Suhas Nawateji for giving me this opportunity to talk on the hottest topic today. And even when we talk about 3rd December, literally today, because a lot of things are happening, and from 5th of December, things are going to be completely different. So I will talk about that, and it is going to impact international trade management heavily. So we are definitely around 3rd of December, and we all will have to speculate what's going to happen on 5th of December when the sanctions actually will hit Russian crude by EU. So I will talk about that. Just to take you through what is this energy crisis, do we really face energy crisis? If you think about crisis in terms of supplies, then I don't think that there is any issue. Only thing is that, supplies are there, but if you have to pay more, obviously that also results into crisis, because ultimately it leads to inflation, it leads to demand destruction. So obviously the world can't afford such crisis. It's going to be obviously a very costly affair, and it is going to impact on international trade management. So the whole purpose of talking over the next 45 minutes is basically to take you through where we are today, means what's the global energy mix, and then Europe's energy crisis, because it is definitely impacting India a lot. Then I would like to just spend a couple of minutes on an outlook of crude oil, that where crude oil is going to head and how it is going to behave. And last, very important thing is that what could be future role of India as a major energy consumer, and which would also mean that the companies who are operating out of India, they are going to get huge benefit or could get impacted as crude oil behaves over the next couple of months, and it will definitely impact the share price of energy companies. So whether these companies are producing energy, whether they are in oil or gas or coal or renewables, or if you are consuming a lot of energy coming out of hydrocarbon, then obviously that's going to be impacted. So while I'm not obviously going to talk on financials of companies, but I think this next 45 minutes are going to help you to understand that what could be impacting the companies and its top line and bottom line, and then it will help you, of course, in your own assessment. So basically, I've just plotted this from 1900 till 2020, I would say, and 2020. Why I've kept it there, because obviously that was the year, the line which you can see, and of course I will take you through where 2050 will end with. So in last 120 years, if you can see, there are various forms of energy. So it started with coal, and almost 100% coal, little bit of oil when it started getting, particularly in 1960s, where uh, countries like Iraq, Saudi, Iran discovered a lot of oil. And then that obviously became a key transportation fuel and the key residential fuel, and also to great extent fuel for the industry. So obviously oil was taking off nicely, and you can see there is around 1970, the oil hit maximum. In fact, coal came down substantially in 1970s. So 1960, when it's a very interesting year where the oil exporting countries like Saudi, Iraq, Iran, they realize that they can play a big role. They can become very powerful countries because industrial revolution was happening, and there was going to be huge demand of oil and to some extent gas. And these countries felt that they need to create their organization. Otherwise, the consumer or consumer countries will take them for ride. So they wanted to protect their interest, and that's when the OPEC was formed. OPEC, which stands for Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, and then they started dictating the price. They started dictating their supplies, and that's where the oil as a commodity started behaving differently. Means if you really see from 1900 to 1960, oil price used to be very steady. There were no fluctuations at all. But come 1960s, 70s, there was an oil shock, which also forced countries like Japan and Europe, who were not at all having any oil, they started thinking that whether they can explore other forms of energy. So that's when a lot of investment happens in the non-hydrocarbon or non-fossil, like hydro or like nuclear, and then natural gas, which is cleaner than oil. Also, there started some investment happening, but still, during 80s and 90s, oil dominated, and it was going to still dominate for couple of years. Means some of you might remember in 90s, people used to think that oil is going to last only for 30 years, 40 years. But now when we are in 2022, you can still talk about oil, which is going to be there for another 100 years at least. So that's the view on oil. So oil is going to be there, but at what price, obviously, is going to decide. But somewhere around 2000, things started happening slightly differently. That is a time when USA discovered a lot of shale oil and shale gas, which, again changed the scenario. US became one of the biggest producers of oil. So earlier OPEC used to dictate, and also OPEC was joined by Russia, and they used to start calling them OPEC Plus. So OPEC Plus got one more competitor. So USA never joined OPEC, of course, but they obviously started producing a lot. Their dependence on Middle Eastern oil started coming down. But of course, USA needs certain oil from Saudi Arabia, or for that matter from Middle East, because certain quality crude is not available with their shale gas or shale oil. So that's a different story, which again goes to show that the dependence on Middle East, while it has come down, they will still need oil coming from OPEC. And I wouldn't say OPEC Plus because Russia is there, but they will depend on OPEC. But you can clearly see we are in 2022 now, and the graph as it shows, oil will start coming down, and so is gas over the next 30 years, though gas has obviously improved a lot because of shale gas, and also gas is relatively cleaner source of energy compared to coal and crude oil. But it will also, converge with oil somewhere in 2050. The reason is obviously the hero of that revolution would be renewables. And that is because of the impact on climate. So climate change is here. And as we all experience the cyclones and floods everywhere happening, bushfires which happen, which have started actually impacting everybody's life. And if we don't do something now, obviously our next generations are going to pay heavy price for that. Just to give example, 20 years back, the taste of mango used to be so sweet, and now the taste of mango what we get today is not as sweet as, so just to give you example, which means that this climate change is real. It is impacting agricultural produce and the quantity of that, which will obviously lead to deeper hunger crisis. So we can't afford, as a global thing, and there is going to be definitely increase in the temperature. So in during COP 21, there was agreement that by end of this century, we will control the increase in temperature by 1.5 degrees Celsius. Unfortunately, things are like it could go to 2.8. So this time in COP at Egypt, there were a lot of discussions which happened, and there was some consensus that if we can't go down to 1.5 in at this stage, but 2.8 is also going to be very high. So maybe 2.1 could be the new goal. But of course, all countries will have to really work hard to bring it down to 1.5. But that means that renewables are going to definitely become necessary fuel for us. And that's where the companies who want to invest into any form of energy, I think renewables is going to be. So no surprise, companies like Adani, Reliance in India, they are spending heavily on renewables, and so are the international oil companies like Shell, BP, ExxonMobil. They have started investing heavily into renewables. There is no choice, so that's the thing, that's the scenario, which means that coal is going to really come down heavily, and then gas, oil will be still there. Of course, this is a global mix. The interesting thing will be like here, I would like to show you something in 2019. And you have to just pay some good attention to this, because what I have done is that this is natural gas, this is oil, this is renewables, and this is coal. And what I have done, I have considered four regions, which is US, European Union, China, and India. So when you see USA in 2019, just before COVID, I have purposely taken 2019. Things will not be much different even 2022. USA, because of the shale gas and oil, they are very heavy on gas and oil. You can see around 35% each. Compared to that, renewables are still much less than 20%, though USA is investing also heavily into wind power and solar power, but still it is very less. Uh, Coal is, they are definitely reducing their dependence, but they are still going to require some coal. A lot of thermal plants are getting converted into renewables. So again, that's going to drive a lot. This is as far as US is concerned today. Look at EU. EU again, story is natural gas and oil. They have been depending still heavily on gas and oil, particularly from Russia, and we will come to Russia story little later. They have started investing into renewables, and some of the Scandinavian countries which have invested heavily into renewables, they have started reaching almost 60-70% in their energy mix. But countries like Germany, Italy, France, they are still below 20%. So if I think about Germany, they are around 14 to 15%, and they are using coal. And obviously, intention of EUs is completely reducing coal. But as we have seen during this crisis, and particularly after Russia-Ukraine war, that these guys, since they were not getting desired volumes of gas and oil from Russia, they are forced to go for coal. So again, that is, obviously going to impact the carbon emissions. But that is the story of EU. When you look at China, then story is completely different. China is world's largest energy consumer, and look at what they are doing. So natural gas and oil, obviously they are largest consumer, one of the largest consumers. And then Their renewables are still less, around 10%. But look at coal. Coal is almost 60%. But China again is heavily investing into wind power. In fact, last couple of years, the wind power, almost 50% of wind power addition has happened in China. So you can imagine that China's seriousness about bringing change in the renewables, and particularly, they are talking about energy storage. They are talking about electric vehicles, and they have obviously taken lead. So they know that they can't afford to burn coal and charge their electric vehicles. So clearly, some solid thought has gone behind that in China's energy policy. What about India? And while I will talk about India in details later, but very quickly, I think India is also heavily dependent on coal and will continue to depend on coal heavily. But we have started again investing a lot into renewables. Oil is we are not producing much. Only 15% of India's oil requirement is domestic, and we can't afford to have more imports. And I will talk about that little later. Natural gas, we have slightly better story. 50% of our natural gas requirement comes domestic. So to that extent, we are better off. But again, India has to do something in the renewables. India has set a target of 500 gigawatt by 2030. Maybe we are not going to reach there because we need to still consume a lot of coal. So of late, it has started coming down, but nevertheless, I think India is definitely making good progress on solar and wind power. So that's the story about 2019. What is the story of 2050? So now if you take a look at it, USA is still going to be on gas and oil because they are still producing big quantity of shale gas and oil. They are not going to quickly give it up, but still their uh, total usage is, means the percentage usage is going to come down. Renewables is obviously a hero here. And then coal is, as you can see, is going to be flat by 2050. And that's where the energy, the particularly carbon emissions is going to be, goal is going to be attained. European Union, again, is not a different story. Rather, their gas and oil are going to be minimal. Few of the Eastern European countries will continue to buy oil and gas, but the developed countries within Europe are going renewables. So that's the story. Renewables are going to hit very high, almost 60%. Coal is flat again, like USA. So European Union and US are going to be flat by 2050. Compared to that, if you see the China, then China is going to have oil, gas, and coal almost equal, but again, very low percentage, around 10 to 15% each. Renewables are going to be big, and China has already started working, as I mentioned earlier. Uh, but India, I think, is going to be still high on coal because we have huge reserves of coal, and still we do not want to just switch over to renewables, though renewables for India also is going to be very high, as I mentioned. Oil is still going to be required for India, so it's going to be 10 to 15%, and so is gas. So India is not going to be, and that's why Prime Minister Modi, he talked about 2070, so clearly we know that it is not going to happen over the next 28 years. So that's the reality, which means again that if you are connected with the business who are making more of thermal energy, or if you are investing into those companies, that, they are still going to be there in existence, at least for another 3, 4 decades. So let me just quickly go to oil because oil is obviously making news and for right reasons. So today, if you really see, Venezuela has the largest oil reserves, followed by, you can see, Middle Eastern countries, Russia, Canada. USA, China have some obviously reserves. India doesn't have much, as I mentioned, 15%. But this is the oil reserves. And why I'm trying to show you this, because what will happen to these countries when everybody switches over to renewables. So obviously, we'll have to see that the dynamics is going to change, socio-political scenario is going to change, and it's going to be very interesting. So that's there on oil reserves. Let me just put top producers of oil in the world in today's, means 2021. Purposely, I have taken 21 prior to Russia-Ukraine war. You can see United States, is the top producer of oil. So while we all would be thinking that Middle Eastern countries will be still calling the shots, OPEC would be calling the shots, the biggest beneficiary is US, followed by Russia, and then followed by Saudi Arabia. And then Canada is there, Iraq, Iran, they are there, which means that if you are the suppliers of oil, producers and suppliers, then obviously if Russia comes down as a supplier, if Iran goes down as a supplier, obviously countries like United States or Saudi Arabia are going to be benefiting in the near future, and so are Iraq, UAE. So, in my view, OPEC is still going to be very dominant, but United States is becoming a very big force in the energy and particularly in the oil. I'm not talking much about gas because it is very difficult to transport gas. The biggest or cheapest means of transferring gas is the pipeline. So if you have to transport gas by vessels, by sea, then you have to liquefy and you have to transport. So it's not going to be that easy. That's why, a lot of countries are still focusing on oil. And countries like India obviously are not there much. China is there. They are also one of the top 10 producers of oil, but their consumption is huge, making them one of the biggest consumer and importer of oil. So I just wanted to give you, some overview of the oil producers. What does that mean? That means, if you have reserves, but if you are producing, so reserves to production ratio, what does that mean? That means it will be calculated in number of years. So if USA has certain reserves, but they are producing certain quantity, that means those reserves will be there for 11 years. But this is only a half story, because this is going only by the proven reserves. There are so many unproven reserves, which means that USA is expected to have at least next 70, 80 years of oil at today's level. Similarly, Russia's story is around 27 years. Saudi, even today's reserves to production, they will have almost 73 years. So India has, 16 years. So if India decides to make everything out of ONGC or cane oil reserves, then we will deplete fast. So we can't do that, obviously. India also has strategic reserves like other countries. So just to give you example, India is importing and keeping something. So there is somewhere around 21 days strategic reserves. Plus oil companies, they have another 70, 75 days. So we have sizable reserves. So if something happens in war-like situation, India can still survive easily 3 to 4 months. Whether we should increase that, obviously, that's again a decision of policymakers, and depending on what crude price will be there in future. And world, you can say 50 years. So again, we don't have to really worry what is going to happen on the stocks of oil. And that's why relatively the petrol prices are always under control. Means although we all, crib about petrol price, but if you really see the crude, which is now say around $80, $85, which has not gone up that much if you compare with gold or if you compare with real estate prices. So since we buy energy every day, we talk a lot about crude oil and petrol and diesel. But in reality, if you really see against gold or real estate, you will know that it has not gone up so much. So price should have been 200, 300 rupees also. I'm not suggesting that, but what I'm trying to say is that because of so much of reserves we have beneath the earth, we don't have to really worry about that. But important for all of us is to change over to renewable as early as possible. This is top countries importing crude oil. So China is the biggest importer, followed by USA, because USA still imports a lot, as I mentioned, and India is the third largest. So these countries are still going to be always in demand. So why Saudi Arabia, Prince comes to us, why other countries, why USA is talking about that we are truly energy partner of India. You will know that India is going to call really good shots, and Indian companies are going to be benefited a lot out of that, because obviously we are in a better negotiating power now, and that's why we also are in a good position to negotiate with Russia today to get sizable discount from that country. This is benchmark crude price, which you would have seen now. Prices have started coming down in last 1 month. There is a reason, and there is why. What is the reason? I'm just going to tell you. But today, this is though it is November 14, but even last 3 weeks, nothing has changed much. In fact, crude price has come down to 85 of Brent and 79 of WTI. So obviously, global oil giants have been making huge profits now, last 1 year, because of whatever situation is there. But good thing is that these guys are putting a lot of money into renewables. So again, from future point of view, I think it will be important for these companies to invest into renewables, and that is what they are doing. But they are making good money now, as you can clearly see here. Interesting is Russia, and why we are talking about that. And my next, 7 to 8 minutes, I will talk about this Russia crisis, and which is important for you, EU crisis. Sorry, if you look at 2011 to 2021, this is the import of European Union from Russia, where you can see there is that EU imported, or rather spent a lot on uh, energy from Russia. 10 years, it has considerably come down. Means, from 149 level, if it has come below 100, obviously there has been a conscious effort by European Union to reduce import of energy. Obviously, they have been investing into renewables, so that is bringing down. Somewhere Russia also has started realizing that they can make money only when the sun is shining. So clearly, from 158 and out of that, the energy of 99, you can see there EU has already cut by 30%. So there are some other countries who are trying to help EU. So help in the sense that these countries are obviously going to be benefited of the crisis or war which is happening. But just keep this in mind that Europe has already started thinking about developing other channels instead of taking from Russia. That of course will make Russia a little nervous, and Russia also has to find out some other buyers. And as you can see, India and China, they are in top three energy consumers. So they are going to be big buyers going forward. And India obviously has taken big advantage of that. So Russia's exports since 24th Feb, when the war broke out. So you can see here the globally, they have exported more than 200 billion euros for oil and gas, and 18 billion on coal. Out of that, if you see European Union, then they have bought substantial still, after 24th Feb. So if you add this 60 plus 48, this is somewhere around 108 billion euros, and which is substantial in spite of, European Union didn't like that, because prices started going up. They didn't have any alternative. And if you recall a famous statement of Mr. Jaishankar, he talked about that what European Union consumes energy in one afternoon, India was, getting only in a month. We were hardly taking any oil or gas from Russia. We were actually importing less than 1%, till 2021. But now things are obviously different. And you can see here, India has become third largest importer of fossil fuels from Russia. China continues to be the topmost, followed by Germany and then Netherlands and some of the European countries. But you can see here, India has become obviously the one of the biggest. So they are fifth. Turkey has taken again a good advantage of the situation. So they are number three. But India clearly is reaching to a very, very commandable position. But still, if you can see here, is that though European Union has come down and India has gone up. My next slide will show you not this, the subsequent slide. This is, as I mentioned, that from November last year to this July, there has been a drop of 30% from Russia. So Russia has been hit definitely, but India and China obviously have made up by buying. Who has got benefited? Before I come to India slide, because if European Union has taken 30% less oil from Russia, obviously these are the two countries which have got huge benefit. So one is United States, which is here, and the other one is Norway. So clearly these two countries have grown and they have supplied larger quantities at the cost of Russia. So obviously because of war, US has got huge benefits and so is Norway. This is Europe's 40% requirement of gas still comes from Russia, right? So, just keep in mind, as I mentioned earlier, is that it is not easy to develop alternative supply for the gas. Gas is the cheapest when it comes through the pipeline. And just here something interesting, this is Ukraine and this is Russia. And these are the European countries, particularly if you see the Germany, Italy. Earlier, a lot of gas used to come through pipeline in Ukraine, and Russia used to pay certain rentals to Ukraine. What they did slowly, they built an alternative pipeline so as to supply directly to Germany, the Nord Stream. And so are, few other pipelines which he started the building. So, which Russia also has done, very systematically. They wanted to reduce their dependence on Ukraine. So, while I'm not political analyst, I could only infer one conclusion that, the preparation of Russia reducing their dependence on Ukraine would have started many, many years back, a decade back. So, and even Germany was going to be benefited because there was less intermediary, so they directly sourced from Russia and they were very comfortable. But that's where, again, the renewables versus gas or oil is going to make that interesting shift in the buying and selling power. So just keep this in mind. Of course, US has started supplying into European Union, but at a higher cost. So just to give you example, European Union, earlier used to get at $8, $9 gas. Now they are paying almost $25 per British MTU. And India, to give you example, it is somewhere around 6.5. And USA, when they are selling within their country, it is around $5. So you can imagine that how much European Union is paying for the gas. So again, the companies who are in Germany today or who are in European Union are paying substantially higher on energy, which is making their manufacturing cost very high, which means that, country like India or country like USA are going to be benefited. China is incidentally shut because of zero COVID policy. So they are impacted heavily. In a way, China not buying much. They have bought a lot of oil and gas, but more as a strategic reserve. But China's industrial activity has come down substantially, which in a way has helped European Union to secure at least some energy from USA and Russia to some extent. But in terms of manufacturing costs, so again, Germany, for that matter, or companies who are operating Europe have started talking about Europe plus one strategy, just like their strategy of China plus one. And it is going to be almost permanent. So again, Indian companies who are going to be benefited, and no wonder that recently Mr. Ambani was talking about India, achieving a substantial economy benefit by 2047, or so is Mr. Adani. So our current 2.6 trillion economy could go to 30 trillion or 40 trillion even over the next 25 years. So if you are again investing or using, or if you are India based, obviously here you are going to be benefited out of that. And India could even supply energy out of India because of our focus on renewables. So that's going to be another story. Obviously, for paucity of time, I can't cover everything because I need at least 3 hours to talk about everything related to that. So just this is a slide, last slide on European Union before I quickly come to India. So Russia, in 21, they were supplying around 40% to Europe. United States was supplying 7%, and UK was supplying 6.4%. In first quarter of 2022, Russia share has come down, and look at who has got benefited is United States from 7% to 16%, and UK from 6% to 8%. And second quarter is again a different story. Russia has come down drastically to 23%. Vis-a-vis US has gone up to 17 and UK has gone up to 14. Norway has remained almost same. So that's the story about Europe and energy crisis and impact on international trade. And again, we have to pay price for that. This is something I talked already about renewables and stories. So Germany is still below 20%. So when we come to India, obviously India energy is industrial. We consume almost 51%, residential is 29%, and transportation is 20%. Our primary source today is still coal and natural gas. For the industrial, residential is coal, natural gas, and renewables. Whereas transportation, I think story could be different, but it is still crude oil because we use a lot of petrol and diesel. Coal we have started using because of electric vehicles, though the penetration is still low. The ideally, they have to go with renewables, and things will start going over the next 10 years. So transportation after 10 years, probably story would be renewables, followed by coal, followed by crude oil, very less. So obviously that's the future for the India. India's top oil suppliers in till war happened, Russia was just less than 0.5. Iraq was obviously big, but what is India's story today means now Russia has displaced Iraq and Saudi Arabia, and you can see here is that Russia has gone to 22% in October. November also continued to be same story. The Iraq is 20, Saudi Arabia has 16%. So that's why European Union is very nervous. But India clearly has to see after their energy security, after their people, and that is the stand the Indian government has taken. China remained, of course, largest buyer of Russian crude. And only thing is that now I said December 3rd today, because come December 5th, that is on Monday, we are going to see where crude is going to behave, how it is going to behave, because European sanctions are coming, or rather they are talking about the ceiling, which is going to happen on crude oil import from Russia. And what they are saying, European Union, or not just European Union, I must correct it, G7, so which includes also USA. What these countries are saying is that Russia has to supply with a cap of $60 a barrel, the crude oil, which means that at the most European Union will pay $60 to Russia. Today, we are still at 80 plus dollars when we look at Brent. Russia is obviously not going to agree for that. But if European Union, and why European Union is so confident about bringing that cap, because 50% of logistics companies and insurance companies of the world are operating out of Europe. And they are saying is that if Russia doesn't agree to the $60 cap, they are going to actually ask the shipping companies not to transport Russia's oil to European Union. And that's where, tomorrow, rather on Sunday, OPEC is meeting to discuss whether they are going to see reduction in the supply of crude oil because of this, because if Russia doesn't agree for that, or if Russia agrees to that, then, obviously every country is going to demand that. Why only European Union? If India is buying so much, if China is buying so much, there is going to be a different ball game. And that's why OPEC is now looking at it. They are, looking at couple of scenarios. If because Russia crude supply can come down, because if they don't agree to $60 cap, then OPEC could get benefit. OPEC also could reduce their supply, uh, or rather reduce their production, which could again keep oil at a higher price. Uh, USA is going to get benefited because, as you remember, they have become largest producer. They are net exporter of crude oil, and they could get huge benefit because a lot of oil is still there with shale oil and gas producers. But again, if OPEC reduces and if USA decides to pump more oil, then there is going to be supply glut, which could bring down price. So it's anybody's guess. Obviously, we'll have to wait till 5th of December, and still, a lot of things are going to happen next couple of weeks because Russia, what stance they take, what India and China are going to take. India and China have already bought a lot of oil because they know that once sanctions come, there could be some disruption happening. And so is Europe. Means, we have been hearing a lot of stories about Europe, switching off their lights during night. But Europe has now sizable reserves with them. So they have bought at a higher price, but at least it's not going to impact their winter. So again, they are using that as a tool to negotiate with Russia. So it's going to be very, very interesting dynamics, and we'll have to see how all these countries are going to deal with that. And that's why if you are in the shipping business, if you are policymakers, or if you are, looking at strategy in building your renewables or using renewables, I think this is the roadmap where you have to work. We, of course, as a company, we work with various companies, whether they are energy consumers or energy producers, to advise them, to guide them. In fact, just beginning of this week, I was with Niti Aayog because I'm working very closely with Niti Aayog on circular economy of oil, where, again, that could be one way of reducing dependence on oil, because oil, can be recycled, and it will also help environment, because one drop of used oil can impact or can pollute 1 million liter of fresh oil. So you can imagine that when you see on the river side, people are washing their vehicles, I think that's not really good sign. So a lot of things government of India is thinking seriously, and I'm very fortunate to work closely on some of the things. So I can tell you with a lot of confidence that India is moving into that direction of reducing dependence wherever possible. So that's the thing. So my closing remarks here is the growing competition among energy sources, then both across and within fuels. So more renewables obviously will force oil and gas companies to reduce their margins, increases the bargaining power of consumers like India, China, and Japan, with economic rents shifting away from traditional upstream producers towards energy consumers. So again, that's going to be, I will not be surprised if India becomes even the global advisor on the solar front, because India is the lowest cost solar producer now. We are producing around 2.6, 2.7, which is much lower than the global average. So again, we could be helping Western countries to reduce that. So I think Indian engineers, and when I address some of the institutes and engineering colleges, my message to them is that there are going to be ample of opportunities. A lot of focus on ESG is happening. We are already working as consultants with some of the companies on reducing their carbon footprint. So that's all going to help. So I hope that helps, though I have to rush, but try to combine, means cover as many things as possible, though 45 minutes will be always challenge.
That's it. That's it. Understand. Rajesh ji?
Yeah, all right, sir. So thank you so much for a beautiful session in detail. We'll open this forum now for the question and answer, sir.
Sir, Abhimanyu here. I have some question regarding the emergence of this hydrogen as a alternate fuel. And many people are talking about hydrogen. And in fact, we are told that Saudi Arabia and other oil countries are investing heavily on hydrogen manufacturing. So will it change the graphs what you are projected for 2040 or 50?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good question, Abhimanyu. So hydrogen as a fuel is definitely going to be dominant, but it will be more as a renewable, because a lot of investment is happening on green hydrogen.
Okay.
So what does that mean is that if you use renewables to produce hydrogen, hydrogen is basically electrolysis process, right? It means you can just break water into hydrogen and oxygen, and but to break that electrolysis, if you use renewable energy, so hydrogen is basically like a petrol or diesel. It's a downstream. Whereas renewable is upstream, so
Okay.
like crude or gas.
Crude
So,
and the petrol. No, you are used there, right? These things.
yeah, correct.
As
So,
a follow-up question, sir, in that your answer is over, sir. Am I interfering?
yeah, absolutely. But Saudi Arabia, since you mentioned,
Yes,
last year, in fact, last year November, I was in Dubai making a presentation on the future of crude oil and its impact. So obviously a lot of Arabs were sitting there, and while 30 years back or even today, when you see Arab, you first think about oil. But I could see a very welcome change there in their overall perception and the questions which they were asking. They wanted to know, and a lot of people from Saudi also were there. They wanted to know that what is going to be future. So like I just shared with you, obviously that gave them some comfort that oil is not going to be out overnight. It is going to still take 20-25 years. But they are also worried about environment and overall impact, and they want to play their role. They are investing a lot into solar, and they are building rather city which will actually be on the renewable. So unless the entire world comes together, it's not going to be that okay, my oil is going to be not going to be used, so I lose. In fact, entire world is going to lose. So these guys are also becoming very conscious.
Okay.
So yeah.
My follow-up question, sir, on the same subject is that since I mean in our Saturday talks we have many scientists and many eminent persons like you participating and sharing a thought. I'm picking up one of the subjects only. The amount of gas, hydrogen, particularly released from the smelting units of India, is if it is captured and converted into power, it is much more than the grid power itself. That is the kind of theoretical study they are having. Since we are using obsolete technologies and smelters, will there be any focus on that, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. Means, tomorrow's economy could become real hydrogen, but again, it's a downstream. That's why I've not talked about diesel, hydrogen, petrol per se. Hydrogen has a lot of advantages. Means, if you really see, and even carbon, means, you take out carbon, and then there are a lot of things which are happening on carbon capture as well. So hydrogen is going to be very key for fertilizer industry, for steel industry, even as a transportation fuel. So if you recall my slide on industrial, residential, and transportation, hydrogen is going to be a very critical and could really help for industrial and transportation. Only thing is that it is very difficult at this stage to transport hydrogen. It is not difficult in the sense that it is that it is very costly today, but obviously as more and more research happens, it will start coming down. The cost will start coming down. But hydrogen is very difficult to be transported into tankers. Again, you have to liquefy like natural gas. So again, it would be very costly affair. So if you can, make hydrogen in small areas, means small clusters, that is going to give us huge benefit. Means I would clearly see a lot of companies going to invest into hydrogen uh, at a district level or even at a village level.
Yes.
That's going to be really interesting, and that is where India is investing a lot, because India, since we know that we don't have much of oil, and just to give example on oil, how much cash we are burning. In 2020, we spent only 65 billion, because obviously crude oil price was very low because of COVID. 2021, we have spent almost $120. That means $1 billion, which is double than 2020. And this year, first 6 months, the financial year I'm talking about, we have spent somewhere close to 90 billion. So you can imagine that India can't afford, to spend so much. So whatever investment we can make it in hydrogen, which is available here, or renewables, that's going to help us secure energy
Yes.
at a very affordable price.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Shailendra, Prasanna here. Nice presentation.
Thank you.
Actually, I was looking forward to, basically presentation on the possible scenarios after this price cap. Okay, fine, but it's difficult to predict. What's your prediction in case after the price cap, Russia decides to accept the price cap? Then obviously European unions will have to go to other. So Russia decides not to accept the price cap. So Russia says we don't want to sell at $60. European unions will have to go to some other sources. Do you think that will push up the oil prices?
Yeah, so Prasanna ji, of course, it is anybody's guess, means where prices will move. But if you really see today, whether Russia is in better position or European Union is in better position, means obviously it's going to be very tough negotiations. It's not going to end on 5th of December. Rather, the negotiations will become intense over next 6 weeks time. Because it is going to be who blinks first. So if Russia is already finding difficult, and they are finding difficult because today their crude is going at a very high discount. So if you really see compared to their break even, they are not going to make much money against what we feel that Russia is making a lot of money. They are not making a lot of money on crude. Rather, they have given huge discounts. At the same time, their volumes have come down into European Union. European Union, very smartly, they have started building some other channels. So, one is US and all that, but it's going to be not sustainable. But just yesterday, Germany has signed a long-term agreement with Qatar for the gas. So these are the small things which they will do to put pressure on Russia. So over next 6 weeks, means it is going to be interesting who first blinks the eye. So in my view, if you ask me, in short term, prices could go up because Russia is not going to say, okay, I'm going to accept, in my view. They are going to also show stubbornness, saying that, this is not acceptable. They have already started saying. European Union has started already putting pressure on their logistics companies. So whether Russia can make available the vessels to transport their oil to India, China, which we'll have to see. So again, it depends on how Russia is going to bring that. So today everybody is keeping up the sleeve something. So it is going to be very interesting, Prasannaji. But in my view, short term, it could result into turbulence. But 2023, if you ask me, which is not very far from now, things are going to be stable as far as crude oil price is concerned. I don't think that it will breach $100 as we have seen in the beginning of this year, because there is a lot of oil, and it could force actually countries to go for more renewables or more investment into that. So somewhere, it could be a short-term gain for OPEC or OPEC plus, but in reality, so somewhere it is going to hit. It could be a very knee-jerk reaction, but this crisis is going to also continue in 2023. The challenges on logistics, the way China, if China ends their COVID-1 policy, or if they realize that it is impacting their economy, if China comes back with full force, then their requirement is only going to go up, which will actually increase the crude oil pricing. So all depends on various things. So at this stage, my take is that we will see a softening next year. Means we have already started seeing the softening. If you see last 3-4 weeks, does that help, Prasannaji?
Yeah, thanks a lot. One quick question. Is there any, can we define, or can you define by your experience, average break-even point, break-even price for oil?
Okay. So that, shifts. How do you define break even? Means, for example, a lot depends, means in oil, I'm saying, break even of the country uh, or the producer is, it depends on how much oil you are exporting. So typically the break even is calculated based on the export value of the oil less the dollars billion spent on non-oil imports divided by the quantity of oil you export. So if one of the things are going to change, there is going to be a change. So if country or that producer can supply more export, means can export more quantity vis-a-vis the non-oil imports, then that goes up. So Russia, for example, 2021, their break-even was somewhere around 52, which is now very high, around 62, 63. If you really see Saudi Arabia, for example, and the break-even, if I talk about only in this term, then again they are very high. In fact, these guys have to fund a lot of other investments and other economy, for which they need oil at least above 50. But when it comes to the oil company, so suppose if you are running the oil company, if you only focus on break even of your oil, so if I'm a Saudi Aramco, for example, then their break even is very, very less. Just $18, $16. Only because of recent inflation, it would have gone up. But still, they can make a lot of money, which ultimately will fund the economy. So that differs. Iran's break even or Iranian companies' break even has come down because their export has gone down substantially because of the sanctions. Otherwise, their break even also could be around 12 to 13 because their units are very old. Yeah, so in that context, we have to see. If I think about shale gas or shale oil, today they are cribbing because their break even has gone up substantially. Their break even in around 6 years back, when crude oil price started coming down, their break even was around 30, 32. Now their break even also has gone to 52. So unless oil is more than $60, these companies are going to really struggle, or these countries are going to struggle. Yeah, so does that help?
Yeah, partly. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
Harish Pathak.
Yeah, Riji.
Yeah.
Sir, your voice is not clear.
This last COP27 meeting, there was a huge discussion on coal. Hello.
Hello, I can't hear you.
Yeah,
properly.
is
Hello?
it better now?
Yeah.
Yeah, better.
Yeah. So there was huge pressure on India for reducing coal. So on absolute terms, you showed some charts where we are showing percentage of internal use of each country. So in absolute terms, is our coal usage much higher than European Union or America?
Much higher, much higher. So, our dependence on coal, because we, continued with our thermal power plants, whereas European Union cut down on the coal long back, and so is now USA. So clearly they had a roadmap they wanted to bring, but, thermal energy cost has always been lower, and particularly when we were going to invest into new energy. And that is why India actually, and particularly what's happening is that European Union, because they could afford to look at some other energy sources, though the cost was going to be high, and they wanted to bring down the carbon emissions, whereas India unfortunately has to live with that. Very recently, our energy minister has talked about coal. They are going to continue even beyond 2030, sizable. So which got reflected into my chart as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So, Rajesh, any other question?
Shailendra ji,
Any more
I'm
questions?
Srinivas Samant here. You did not mention about methanol or ethanol as alternate fuels, and India is giving a lot of emphasis on that, because you can take carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide and convert it into methanol. Similarly, ethanol also can come from bio sources, and this I think in future, it can participate in a much bigger way. What is your
Absolutely.
opinion?
Absolutely, Srinivas. Yeah, and for paucity of time, of course, when I conduct workshops, I conduct for 3 hours, 4 hours, even 6 hours. So obviously, I can give justice to that. But very good question. And again, ethanol, methanol, they are again the downstream. And while my focus was all on energy and particularly for upstream, if you look at India, then ethanol certainly we have again a good future because our current usage could be 5%, going to 10% now. And we are also talking about achieving 25, 30%. In fact, Brazil has gone way beyond that. But again, there the price of ethanol mixed fuel would be lower than the normal petrol. So it is going to be, and oil companies are also configuring their refineries that way. So there is an intent that also will help farmer community. So if you watch now Nitin Gadkari's videos, he talks a lot about ethanol, and that is going to be so. And going forward, the biodiesel, bio fuel, or for that matter, biogas is going to be certainly attaining good, but still, their percentage is going to be still low. But that's a product, of course. That's a downstream like petrol, diesel. So the petrol, in fact, again, I didn't touch base on electric vehicles. So again, there, if you are talking about petrol, for example, today, and if you are going to add ethanol to petrol, what is going to be future of petrol? Because if petrol consumption comes down, then ethanol is also going to come down. And today, 70% of our petrol or gasoline, as they call it in Western countries, goes into two-wheelers and three-wheelers. And these two-wheelers and three-wheelers are going to get converted to electric vehicles faster than any other vehicles. That means over next 4 to 5 years, and we work a lot also on electric vehicles. So we clearly see that by 27, 28, it is going to come down heavily. The transition will happen to EV from current IC engines. So whether you use petrol, pure petrol, or petrol plus ethanol, that's going to be short-lived. That means we won't need petrol after 6, 7 years for the new vehicles. Whatever vehicles are there on the ground, on the roads, obviously they will require. So again, it is again interesting scenario. So petrol is going to come down with 70% two-wheelers going out. What you need would be for cars, So again, it's going to be very interesting. So again, if you are supplying to car companies, if you are supplying to two-wheeler companies, so again, what we do normally is that we design the modules as per industry. So it becomes very difficult to cover, but very good question.
Now, why I ask? Because there is a ray of hope now. There one German company has come out with actually a plant which converts carbon dioxide into methanol. And tomorrow, suppose methanol can directly go. I'm not talking about blending of methanol or ethanol in petrol, but methanol as such as a fuel. Then there is a great boost, and to economy.
Yeah, of course, of course. But it is still, it has carbon, so we should not forget again that there is going, even methane is talked a lot, nowadays. So a lot of even coal bed methane, there is process also which is getting into that, taking out something out of coal. So what do you do otherwise with coal, which is going to be beneath the earth? You have to make use of that, going forward. So again, there are a lot of technologies, a lot of research is happening. India is also making a lot of things. Hydrogen mission now they are talking about. So a lot of things will come.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I think there are no more questions. If at all you have some questions, you can always write back to us and we'll get it across answer from Shailendra ji. So we can close the call, sir. On behalf of entire team of China Technologies and the management, we thank you for sparing the time and giving us a very much in detail about this entire energy sector and its economics worldwide. Thank you, sir, and we look forward to have you sometime in future again with a different topic, different insights.
Yeah, absolutely, Rajesh. It was my pleasure. So thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity. Thanks, Abhimanyu ji, and thanks, Suhas ji. I think it was really good.
I'd like to meet you on ESG matter because we are working something on the ESGs. Our robotics, we want to call ourselves as a green robotics company because most of our sludge cleaning machines and the robotic arms we are using in hazardous application areas and hazard mitigation areas. So let's meet sir soon.
Sure, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Shailendra ji.
Thank you,
everyone.
Suhas ji.
Thank you for enabling. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.